Welcome to this published authors show. My name is Kenneth Muyingo, and with me I have a special guest that I will be interviewing. First, I just want to mention if you watch this interview and you would like to write a book, to become an author and write your first book, there's a link with this interview wherever you're watching it from to join the group, become an author, and write your first book. And with that said, I would like to get into the interview by asking my special guest to say hello to our viewers and listeners and to introduce herself.
Hello, everybody. I am Coach VMP. The MP stands for Mitchell Palmer. So I just shorten it to Coach V.
Awesome. Coach V, thank you so much for making time for the interview. And if
Thank you
somebody
for
is
having me.
watching this interview and they would like to know more about Coach V, what can you share with them about Coach V?
Sure. So a lot of people ask me, okay, what is the coach for? Where does that come from? And the coach comes from I am a certified intuitive life coach. I am a certified holistic practitioner. I'm also a certified peer recovery coach in addictions and mental health in the state of Ohio because I'm here in the United States. And I'm also certified as a family to family peer support trainer with NAMI. And that just means that I am able to help families who are dealing with loved ones who may be suffering from mental illness to help them with coping mechanisms on how to not get so wrapped up
Uh,
in the symptoms of the illness. So that's where the coach comes from.
Wow, impressive. Thank you so much for sharing and for the amazing work you're doing.
Hmm.
And so, besides this,
Hmm.
you have also written a book.
I did. I did write a
Wow.
book.
Can you tell
Uh,
us about that?
Absolutely, I'd be happy to. So I wrote just before the whole world shut down from the pandemic. I released a 68-page self-help book, and I have it here. It's entitled "Renew Your Mind, Take Charge of Your Mental Health: 8 Alternative Ways to Improve Your Quality of Life." And the really cool thing, well, there's several cool things about this book, but the first thing is it's I give it to you straight, no chaser. So there's no fluff in there. You don't have to read 20 years of my backstory before you get to the meat and potatoes of the book.
Uh,
I do share a little bit my perspective on how the current mental health services industry is based upon my personal experiences with it. I was diagnosed with manic depression back in 2005, and I was immediately put on a regimen of prescription medication and to see a psychiatrist. And after 2 visits, I knew that wasn't the best plan for me because I'm sitting at the psychiatrist talking circles around them.
uh,
Like, there's no healing going on.
uh,
We're actually having, like, how you and I are speaking, that's how my therapy appointments went. And I think that happened, one, because on my end, I wasn't comfortable. The therapist didn't look like me. It was a white male therapist, had all his certificates and degrees on the wall. Yay for him. However, my background as a Black woman, my experiences, my trauma, there was definitely a disconnect. So when I get uncomfortable, especially in the past, when I get uncomfortable, I lead with my intellect. So me and a psychiatrist were sitting there really having conversations. It was no therapy, it was no healing. And like I said,
uh,
by that second appointment, I said, he can't handle me and I'm not comfortable with him. So I just stopped going.
uh,
And then the prescription medication, I was told, give it 7 to 10 days to get into my system. It was Zoloft. I did not like the side effects of it. It
uh,
changed who I am day to day. Just in case y'all can't tell, I'm a really upbeat woman. So that really mellowed me out, and there was no variance in my energy. It was just straight like this. And that's
uh,
not who I am.
indeed.
I also, though, was in tune enough to know that those treatments were only treating the symptoms of my quote unquote mental illness. And the
Uh,
reason why I say quote unquote is because I recognize that the trauma that I had that wasn't healed is what my problem was. So I needed help healing the trauma. I needed help coping with day to day stress. I
uh,
didn't need something managing my symptoms.
I see.
So For 7 years after that, I hid my symptoms. I hid my depression as best as I could. I was a functional depressed person, and I liken that to when people say functional alcoholics. Whether you see it in a movie or whether you know someone in real life, they can drink, but they hold a job down, they pay their bills. That's a functional alcoholic. I
Yeah.
liken myself to a functional depressed person. So I had all these feelings of hopelessness, the sadness, this symptoms. I was a self mutilator, so I was a cutter back in the day. But I held a job. I took care of my family. I paid my bills. So people didn't believe me when I asked for help because I was
Yeah.
always that strong person.
Yeah.
People didn't believe that. Oh, you'll be okay, girl. Just you'll be all right. Just pray about it. You'll be okay. So I spent from 2012 actually working on healing myself from the inside out. And that took me onto a holistic path. So I learned how to meditate. I still pray, but I learned how to meditate. I learned about positive affirmations. I read a lot of books that talked about transforming your thoughts.
Yeah.
Eckhart Tolle, Les Brown, Lisa Nichols, Dale Carnegie on how to influence people. Those are the types of things, Napoleon Hill, those are the types of literature I started to read that gave me the most benefit because it empowered me to know that how I grew up or my early adulthood did not have to define my future, but I had to do the work to transform up here,
Yeah.
transform those thoughts, forgive people, forgive myself, so on and so forth. So 8 years later, we get to 2020. I released my book where I compiled the top 8 steps that I used in the order that I used them to help me, what I say, beat manic depression. And I say beat manic depression because, again, depression is a thought or feeling of hopelessness. Whether something really happened to you or whether you're anxious or worried about something happening, it can all put you into that mindset of, woe is me, the world is nothing, I'm not any good, I don't trust people. They're all thoughts.
Yeah.
So in this book, I share my 8 steps, like I said, in the order that I use them in my personal life on
Yeah.
how I transform my harmful thoughts into healthy thoughts without medication. So that's how the book came about.
Amazing. Let's see the book again.
Yes. Is it a good shot?
Yes, it is. Very
Okay.
beautiful. Wow.
Okay.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much for sharing, you, Jenny. And I just have to mention, I really like your chat. Your shot. Mental health is sexy.
Yes, I wear this on purpose because this is my brand. And if people have the book, they'll see on the back too. I created this brand actually in 2018.
Yeah.
And the short story behind that is when we think about, I don't care what part of the world we're in, when we think about something being sexy, it's something that we will climb every mountain and swim every sea to get.
Yeah.
Whether it's a car, a spouse, a credit score, a body shape, a house, a career. Once we determine that's sexy and I want it,
Yeah.
it's like blind, we put on blinders to get it. And I just think that mental health should be on that list of things. And when
It
you look
is
up
on
the
that
definition,
list.
yeah, and I'm gonna put it there, right? So when you look up, talk about something being sexy, we think about 3 key words. It's
Yeah.
alluring, it's attractive, and it's desirable. So mental health is sexy was born. I want mental health to be alluring, attractive, and desirable, and that people or move every mountain to attain it and sustain their mental health. So
Yeah.
that's my brand.
Wow, this is amazing. You are multi-talented. It's
Hey, we on a
that's that's
mission.
that's pretty cool. And
Thank you.
wow, mental health is sexy. I agree with you
Mental health is
100%.
sexy. Yes,
And
thank you.
you sharing your journey and the the journey that you were on yourself with
Mhm.
the psychiatrist and having these appointments that you are like, you can't help me because it's just someone just maybe from what you share that it was just like a conversation and you realized it's not going anywhere, and then
Absolutely.
you went on this journey that you healed yourself through self-discovery and personal development, if we could say it like that.
That's a great way to put it. Great way to
Yeah.
put it.
and
Great way to put it.
and then this book is written. um, what would you say inspired you to write the book?
Outside of my personal experience, or in my words, my failure with
Yeah,
the mental health services system, I knew that I am not the only person who has either experienced a lack of help from how traditionally mental illness is treated,
yeah,
or I knew that there were people who were actually going the traditional route, whether they had a therapist in medicine, but they kind of felt like something was missing. So
yeah,
my intent in writing the book was to be a resource to those people who can relate and who can say, you know what, I don't really know what I need, but I know this pill ain't helping me because you just treating my symptoms. I
yeah,
know I haven't healed from my childhood. I know I haven't healed from my divorce. I know I still got self-esteem issues. I wrote the book as a resource for those people who know, okay, hold on, I don't want to take medicine the rest of my life. Is there something else that I could do? And the
yeah,
work is difficult.
yeah,
When we're talking about healing, when we're talking about forgiving ourselves, when
yeah,
we're talking about forgiving other people, like that's some real life in your face soul work that's happening. So
yeah,
it's not as easy as quote unquote taking a pill every day.
yeah,
No, you got to face them demons. You got to make some decisions to stand firm. And that's why the first chapter of my book is entitled Forgive Yourself for Being Duped. And I
yeah,
start off the book that way because I learned from my own experience that if I didn't forgive myself first for believing what other people said or believing how other people treated me, I
yeah,
couldn't receive the other lessons. So
indeed.
I start off the book with that chapter so that the reader understands, look, here it is on the table. You've been lied to, you've been persuaded, and it, by people who you trusted, that's why you believed what they said about you. So now that we got that on the table, let's work through forgiving ourselves for being duped, or forgiving ourselves from being tricked, or forgiving ourselves from being bamboozled, hoodwinked, and bamboozled into
Yeah,
believing the lies of other people.
yeah,
So I start the book off that way. Oh, and something too, the end of every chapter, there's a exercise at the end of each chapter, because I want the reader to not just keep reading. I need
yeah.
them to read and then immediately begin to apply the information that they just read. So, yeah.
Oh, that's great indeed. And like, I'm reminded of something. Somebody said if you look for a book on the market and you can't find it, maybe it's your responsibility to write it.
I like that. I
And
like that. I like that. Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
and from what I sense, you looked for something that could help and you just couldn't find it. And when you figured out something that worked for you, you realize this belongs out there. And I'm curious, what would you say is the vision that you have for this book? Where do you see this book?
So I see this book being an international resource, and this is why. When we talk about mental health, that crosses nationalities, religions, genders. It crosses all barriers, because no matter
Okay.
what community you come from or how you was raised, whether you came from an affluent background or poverty whatever it is, everybody has mental health, just like everybody has physical health. It's
Yeah.
just that unfortunately there's more of an emphasis on the physical health versus the mental health. Now,
The
we can
mental health.
honestly say since the pandemic, conversations are changing. People are being more so concerned or tapped into people's mental health. But I want to make sure that I make the point that when we talk about mental health, that doesn't only mean there's an absence of a mental illness. Just like when people go to the gym, that's not always because their doctor said your blood pressure high, you better lose 30 pounds.
Yeah.
We know there's people, and we may be part of that group, that go to the gym just to maintain what we have. There doesn't have to be anything
Yeah.
wrong. We just want to maintain what we have. It's the
Yeah.
same thing with mental health. So people can't say, oh, there's nothing wrong with me. Oh, I'm not crazy. I don't need to work on my mental health. No, you do, because everybody has mental health. So,
Yeah.
because of that being a fact, I would like my book and my subsequent books, if they coming, to be an international resource, whether people do the clinical way of treatment or not. I would like my book to be a resource in tandem with prescriptions or in tandem with clinical, because I've coached some clients that, again, so let me make this disclaimer. I'm not clinical, I'm not a doctor, so I cannot advise anybody not to take their meds. That's between
Yeah,
you and your doctor. What I am saying though is that we know we get to a point in life where we feel something else is missing.
indeed.
And then we get on a quest to find what that is. All I'm saying is just check out my resource, because there may be something in there to fill in that gap. And as long as I can teach you how to begin a routine to support your mental health, you'll be able to handle the bad traffic better, the kids acting up, a bill being past due, whatever crisis is going on in the world. I personally believe that's a lot of people issues. Not that they have a mental illness, a clinical mental illness, but
Uh,
that more often than not, people just have not been taught how to deal with life in a healthy way.
uh,
So
uh,
I would like my book to be a resource and a point of reference, like internationally.
Amazing.
Is that a big dream?
No, it's that make it bigger. See, the beauty of life is if we can have a vision that is clear. I'm a firm believer that we are already on our way to making it a reality.
Absolutely.
Sometimes we just don't know what we want out of life and the things that life presents to us. But I
Mhm.
love that you're clear about the vision that you have for this book,
Thank
and
you.
run with it. Run with it.
I'm running. I'm running.
And thinking about where we are right now as the human race, it doesn't matter
Mhm.
where you're living geographically. We have all been impacted and affected by the
Absolutely.
coronavirus,
Absolutely.
and people are finding themselves in houses, sometimes with partners they were only seeing for a couple of hours a day,
Yes.
and now they're
Yes.
stuck together in the house. And other
Mhm.
people are living alone and they're having to just talk to walls all day long, and they cannot go
Mhm.
out. The bars are closed, the clubs are closed, and everything else. And I'm thinking mental health has really become a concern, like you mentioned earlier.
Mhm. Mhm.
If
Mhm.
somebody finds themselves in a tough spot, like they're struggling right now, what would you share with them, knowing what you know with your experience?
So, one of the biggest things that I would share, because everybody to some degree has had some sort of effect from what's going on globally, whether it's been a personal impactment with a family or friend catching it, whether it's been a job shutting down, the job letting go, the kids being home because school closed. Everybody to some degree has been affected by this virus, right? So, with that being said, we see a lot of times now, I know where I live, we see a lot of times now on the news where people are talking about mindfulness. Be mindful, stay present in the moment. Like it's a new woo woo concept. Like,
Yeah,
no, it's been here. Like,
yeah,
let's get into it. So one of the biggest things, again, speaking from my experience, which was 15 years ago with the mental illness, so
yeah,
they say. No, so before any virus, I still think that the techniques I use are more than relevant today. First things first, people have to learn in a healthy way how to be present or how to be mindful. And this is what I mean. We're sitting here now having a conversation. If I chose not to be present, I could freak out because there's a virus outside. I
yeah,
could freak out because my daughter is an essential worker. I could freak out because I don't know what I'm gonna make for dinner. Like there's just so many things that if I chose not to be present and speaking to you right now, that if I didn't know better, I could freak out about it.
yeah,
A lot of times when people freak out, that is usually not what's happening right there in that moment.
yeah.
It's usually something they're worried about that may or may not happen in the future, or something that has happened in the past.
In the past. Wow.
So they freak out. So clinically, doctors call if you worry too much to the point of debilitation about something that hasn't happened yet, that's anxiety. If you worry about something that's happened in the past that you can't change, that's depression. So when we start to get these mental illnesses down to their bare foundations, it makes them more palatable for somebody to understand and say, "Oh, Okay. Instead of shying away for these big scary terms.
Yeah.
So now that we know it's a lack of being present in the moment, we can do things to practice to bring us back to center or to bring us back to being present. Now, let's be clear. That don't mean because I'm being present on this call that I ain't got those other concerns that I mentioned. They still there. They waiting on me to get back to them. What I'm saying is if I choose to be present,
Yeah.
and I choose to exist in gratitude, and I choose to be clear minded, I have a higher chance of being successful at fixing whatever problem I think I may have versus me freaking out and panicking or worrying about something that happened a year ago or worrying about something that may or may not happen in 2 weeks. Let me be clear right now and figure out what I can do in a healthy way to come up with a solution. And I do that one by focusing on my breathing. Because I'm a breathe regardless. As long as
Yeah.
I'm not underwater or somebody smothering me or something like that, my body's going to breathe automatically. Just like I'm going to blink automatically.
Yeah.
So if I need to bring myself back to present by focusing on my breathing, inhaling through my nose slowly, exhaling through my mouth, or literally sitting and counting my blinks, that brings me back present to this moment. And once I feel my heartbeat decreasing, once I feel that I'm not flushed anymore because I done got worked up on my blood pressure high, once my palms start sweating, once I sit still enough to be present, then I can have a clear head. I can get my pen, I can get my paper, I can write down some things I need to do, write down some possible plans, some numbers I can contact for resources. But I can't do any of that if I'm freaking out.
Yeah.
And I'm only freaking out if I'm not present in the moment. So I always say that's the first and foremost thing because I can ramble off tips all day. But if that person is not being present, they're not going to hear what I'm saying, right? Because they're worried. Their brain's going around. I need to get them here back with me, center and present, and then teach. So that's always
Yeah.
my first step. Be mindful and then work after plan. Be present and then work after plan. Ask for help, whatever it is you need to do. But first, gather control of yourself by
Yeah.
gathering control of your thoughts.
Amazing advice. I'm loving this, Coach V. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And you mentioned earlier about some authors and books, things that you read, Les Brown, Napoleon Hill. Would you mention some resources that have been helpful for you on your journey that people can maybe start with?
Yes, I'm going to actually mention some free resources that helps me on my journey, especially because we're in the middle of a pandemic. It's not going to help if I ramble off stuff that costs hundreds of dollars and people can't afford it, right?
Uh,
One thing that everybody has access to now, more often than not, there's a small pocket of people who don't, but more often than not, everybody has a phone. Everybody has some sort of internet access.
yeah,
YouTube is a great free resource that you can pull up, put in the search engine, affirmations, meditation music, self help books, and start listening and paying attention.
yeah,
I even have a YouTube channel where I have over 100 videos. So that's a free resource where I'm strictly talking about mental health and healing techniques without medication. My YouTube channel is Coach VMP, my name, and V is spelled VEE, Coach VMP. I personally have over 100 videos on that channel where I talk about anxiety tips, depression tips. I talk about mental health stories that are in the news because a lot of times people are following celebrities or they're following news information and
yeah,
they're just gathering the drama or the information.
yeah,
I have segments on my channel where I talk about trending topics, but I talk about the mental health aspect of the people involved. You don't know who might watch that video because it's their favorite celebrity, but then they come away from the video with some tips and techniques to use in their own life. So
yeah,
YouTube is my first and foremost free resource. Number two, the library. A lot of us can't get out or go to the public libraries. However, libraries now have online access. So you can check out a book online. You can go to Amazon. Again, my book is even on Amazon as an ebook. And I think the ebook, if you have Prime, is like free.
yeah,
But in any event, you can read books online. You can listen to audiobooks. There's a lot of books on YouTube right now. You just have to search audiobooks, hours of material. You
uh,
just click play and go on about your day and listen to it. So those are 2 or 3 resources that won't cost the person any money. However, they'll be able to find steps to begin taking charge of their mental health and or healing as they see fit.
wow. Very nice. We'll put the link to your YouTube channel with the interview so that people can access that resource. And looking at where we are right now, like you mentioned something earlier that sometimes people say, "Yeah, I don't have mental issues because I don't have a mental problem," or something like that.
Right.
But
Hmm.
um, if somebody's watching this and they feel they are in that place, that they feel I don't have mental issues, I don't need to take care of my mental health, what would you share with them, knowing what you know?
So, one of the things that I break down in my book, as well as on my YouTube channel, on my social media, when I have speaking engagements, I have to make sure that people understand when I say mental health, what that term means.
Uh,
Again, a lot of people think it's such a clinical 55-word definition, and it's not. When I talk about mental health, I break it down to the simplest form. So, mental health, when I speak about it, it's talking about how you view yourself, how you view other people, the people around you, and how you view the world at large. That's the simplest definition I can give without all the fluffy words. So,
uh,
what's that saying is if you're at home and you're constantly looking in the mirror and your self talk is negative, you have a mental health challenge. Not a mental illness, you have a mental health challenge.
uh,
If you always think that people are out to get you, whether it's family, friends, spouse, co-workers, the world is full of bad people. Ain't nobody good, so I'm not gonna do good. You have a mental health challenge.
uh,
So even though you may not have gone and got clinical help or got a clinical diagnosis, you are able to do an honest self assessment and say, you know what? Yeah, a lot of the times I do feel this way,
uh,
or I do think negatively. So let me work on my mental health. Again, I'm always going back to physical health because people can get it like that.
uh,
You may be your ideal height and weight, right? So on paper, you don't have any physical health issues, no diabetes, no high blood pressure, no high cholesterol, no heart disease. On paper, you good. But when you get out of bed in the morning, if you oohing and ahhing and everything popping and aching, you need to stretch. Right? We gonna keep it
yeah,
100. Like you need to stretch. You need to move
exactly.
around.
Uh,
So again, a doctor didn't tell you to do that, but your body told you, okay, you've been sedentary for too long. I need you to get up and walk around the block, walk
uh,
around this house, jog up and down these steps. So we have to be taught. We used to do this, but we've gotten away from it. We have to be taught as a people to get back to paying attention to our inner self, or what I
uh,
call our energy. And when
uh,
I say our energy, that G stands for God. We all got it. Whether you call
uh,
it a conscience, whether you call it a feeling, whether you say my gut, we all have that inner divine resource that we ignore. And
yeah,
why do we ignore it? Because we've been taught to look here and TV and radio and social media. We've been taught to look every place else when we all have inside of us that inner compass, that inner guidance system to let us know when something's wrong. When we're hungry, what happens? Our stomach grumbles. And the
uh,
first thing we say, oh, I need to eat something.
uh,
It's not because the doctor told you need to eat. Your body said that. So our
yeah,
body is constantly talking to us, but we've been taught to pay attention to so many external distractions that we ignore the signs. How many times have either you yourself or a loved one or a movie or a show on TV, somebody finally go to the doctor because something's bothering them, and the doctor says, how long you been dealing with this? You know what? It's been a couple months now. I just thought it would go away.
uh,
Oh, you know what? It started a couple weeks ago, and dude, that was your cue. And
yeah,
what you did, you ignored it, and now it's gotten worse. So again,
yeah,
I'm just using that example to say we have an ability. We just have to return to tuning in, tapping in, and turning on to our body. Ain't nobody got to tell us half the time when something wrong. By the
uh,
time it shows physically, when somebody say you look tired or you look sick, By the time it shows physically, we already been at home dealing with it privately. I mean,
Exactly. Yeah,
we
yeah,
keeping it honest, right?
indeed.
So people would need to learn to get back into sitting, listening, focusing on their breathing. If they believe in prayer, pray, and to ask for guidance, divine intervention, signs, clues, whatever. And don't just ask for them. Be ready to pay attention to the answers and take action. So we just got to get back to, again, we've been equipped and created with everything that we need, every sign, every warning, every alert.
Yeah,
We've been equipped with it.
awesome. That's great stuff, Coach V. And so you wrote the book and published it in 2020, is that right?
Yes, I released it January 2020 before I even knew stuff was gonna happen. So I'm feeling like I
Wow.
need to do another release because everything just, yeah.
Yes, please. And
But yeah.
what would you tell me is the one thing that has happened to you personally that has had the greatest impact on you writing? Because you mentioned that you are on this journey of
Hmm.
self-discovery and trying to heal yourself. But
Hmm.
I'm thinking maybe there's other people who have been on this journey, but they didn't write the book. Otherwise, you would have found it.
Right, right,
Yeah.
right.
And I'm curious, what would you say is the one thing that has happened to you personally that got you to say, wait, there's a book here and it's coming out?
Hmm. I think that because of how it was created, I had nothing to do with it. I think that my desire to help people, because I remember feeling lost, I remember feeling um, confused, I remember feeling like no matter how I looked on the outside, no matter how well I spoke, no matter the car I drove, no matter if I asked for help directly or if I hinted about it, no one really felt comfortable. And I'll go into that in a moment. No one really felt comfortable either, or they weren't able to help me. Now, what I say the first part, no one felt comfortable, is because even though I've always been upbeat and bubbly and very personable and all this wonderfulness you see today, I used to be mean back in the day. And I was very clear if I did not think you were on my level.
Ah,
So, what I mean by that is, I may have had people in my circle who saw that I needed help. Like I said, mentioned earlier, I used to be a cutter, which means I used to harm myself.
ah,
So I know I had people in my space who saw that and may have wanted to help, but I didn't make it easy for them to help me.
ah,
Because even though I had that bad behavior, I still had my house and my car and my job. Like, you couldn't tell me nothing.
ah, ah,
So I wasn't approachable.
ah,
So that's why I'm saying I think I had people around me who may have wanted to help, but they didn't know how because I didn't make it easy for them. And or I had people around me who just didn't know how to help, so they kept it quiet. And I think a lot of that too, honestly, Kenneth, comes from, we have a horrible stigma and taboo in the Black community that we don't talk about mental health.
ah,
We don't talk about it. It's taboo. It don't exist. And coming from a background that's strongly against having those conversations, I know for a fact that had an impact on how I dealt with my challenging times in life.
ah,
So I've been diligent about breaking that cycle with my family. And thus, I created the Mental Health is Sexy brand because I want not just people who look like me, but I want people, period, to understand that this is a safe and necessary conversation to have. So, for someone who is going through a life transition, or as I call it, a personal growth and healing journey, because we
ah,
all be on them, it's just a matter if we pay attention or not. But
ah,
someone who may be going through that and they didn't write a book or they can't find the resource, follow that. That's your inner guidance. That's your inner God telling you, shaking some stuff up because it ain't right? So we need to do something different in life. And we have to be able to forgive ourselves because we have been tricked. We've
ah,
believed so many things from media and family and friends to doubt how great we truly are. So once we learn how to get back into self empowerment mode, that person might write a book later on because I may have missed something in my book
yeah,
that they've done that might help the next series of readers. They
amen.
may have gotten tips from here,
Yeah,
but they might have tweaked tip number 7
yeah,
because my 7 didn't work for them. So they may have tweaked it for them, and so they need to write a new book
yeah,
to share their steps and perspective. But before we even get to that point, we have to be at a space in our life where we know we've overcame whatever that challenge was. That's why it took me 8 years to write my book. I
yeah,
didn't want to just write a book and say, here, that's what I did without me having my own receipts to say
yeah,
this is what worked over a period of time. It
yeah,
took me 8 years to do it because I wanted to make sure when I put this information out or when people ask me questions, I was able to stand confidently in my answers. Whether I succeeded the first time, whether I had to try on the seventh time, I wanted to have so much time in between that to say, no, this work, it ain't easy, but this work.
yeah,
Like I'm my own receipt, like this work. And a lot
yeah,
of times when I'm out speaking and traveling, I'm usually dressed nice and this, that, and the third. So if I'm in an environment where it's cold and I have on like a sweater or a blazer, today I have on a hoodie because I was showing off my
yeah,
brand. If I'm in a space like that, I am quick to either take my blazer off or to pull my sleeve up because when I show people the scars, it's one thing if I tell you verbally I used to cut myself.
yeah,
But looking at me today, people are like, girl, you ain't do that. You just put that part of your story to sell some books.
yeah,
No, let me show you my receipts. So when I show my receipts or I show my scars and I say, no, this is what I used to do. This is how long I've done it. Now you can appreciate more who I am today. Because you might see this put together package and the glitter on my eye, but you
yeah,
don't understand how far I came, the work that I did. So it makes me more relatable when I show people, hey, because I've had opportunities to get my scars fixed, to,
yeah,
to have surgeries. I don't
yeah,
need that because I knew at some point when I was ready, when it was my time, that I would be sitting right here in this moment, sharing my story, sharing my resource, and I got to show the people, no, this is where I came from. So I want to be able to encourage and inspire people, no matter where they are on their journey, to say, don't give up, keep
yeah,
pushing through. But you got to do more than hope and wish and pray. You got to have action behind it. But there's a scripture that says faith without works is dead. I think it's in James for the
yeah,
Bible people who's listening. So you can't just pray and wish and hope, oh my goodness, I need to. No, you need to get up and you need to do something and you need to do it consistently.
yeah,
There's an acronym for the word push. You may have heard it, PUSH, push. It says pray until something happens.
yeah,
Something's not going to miraculously happen because you prayed. You got to have action with that prayer. And my book is the 8 steps of action that I took to get to where I am today.
wow, that's very powerful. It's
You ain't know what you was getting today, Kenneth, huh? You ain't know what you was getting today. Like, who
absolutely
is this
not.
woman?
And I love this. This is part of the reason that I really enjoy doing these interviews because the value that comes out of them is just amazing. And I mean, what you're just sharing right there, there's something that I think it was Les Brown who said that in life we get what we are and not what we want. So he said, don't teach what you don't know and don't lead where you've never
Yes.
been. and
Yes. Come
and
on.
personally, I am the kind of person that if you're going to give me marriage advice, I want to look at your marriage first.
Yes. Come
if
on. Yes.
if you're going to tell me about uh, investment, I don't get investment advice from broke people.
I know. Come on now. I
So
know that's right.
so
Yes.
if we're talking about mental health, and I mean, it's very courageous of you to share your journey and to step into your story like this because this is your superpower. And I just want to applaud you for doing the work that you're doing and for
Oh, thank you.
standing up and for allowing God to walk through you to reach out to other people like this.
Thank you.
It's amazing. And yeah, you mentioned a lot there, and I was like, "This is amazing. This is amazing." And are you working on any other books?
I am. I am. I'm currently working on 2 books. So this book I wrote again from my voice, my standpoint, teaching what I did. However, last year, before the coronavirus took like over everything, there was a huge worldwide movement for Black Lives Matter, right?
Yeah.
So it wasn't just in a little pocket. There were other countries, whether they spoke English or not, who were standing and celebrating, and different races and
Yeah.
nationalities and religions all came together. And what I learned from watching some of the footage is that there is not a lot of help or assistance or resources for Black men.
Yeah.
Black men are kind of just, just thrown to the wolves, figure it out.
Yeah.
There's some
Yeah.
small pockets of groups or nonprofits who offer resources, but then you look at it and say, Black men have been taught to be so tough
Yeah.
that even though the resource may be within their reach, they're not going to quickly go to it because they haven't been taught that it's okay to do that.
Yeah.
So the first book that I'm working on right now is me as a Black woman speaking to my Black brothers, my Black uncles, my Black grandparents, my Black friends, all the Black men, whether I know them in real life or not.
Yeah.
Me speaking to the Black men and telling them it's okay to heal. It's okay. I don't know how the book is going to do. I don't know if one person's going to read it and see value or 100,000 people. What I do know is that it's been placed upon my heart because I do so much for women, right? And a
Yeah.
lot of people do women's conferences and women's
Yeah.
weekends, but the men, our Black men, are left behind. So
Yeah.
it's my intent with this book to write from a Black woman's standpoint who's had to help the Black man in her life on their healing journey to say, here, I see you. If your wife, your sister, your cousin, if they don't see you, I see you. So, because of my experience, let me show you or help you with some things. And it's cool to read, brother. Like that's how I'm going to be talking in the book. Like
Yeah.
it's cool. It's not going to be all above people's heads and so
Yeah.
$50 words. No, it's going to be as if I'm sitting, how I'm sitting with you and having a conversation. Let my personality shine through. If I speak professional, I do. If a little hood get mixed in, it gets mixed in because that's how I am in real life. So I
Exactly.
need to make the book with the tonality that the reader, that Black man who's reading that book, that something begins to break. That shield, that tough exterior, something begins to break and that they say, okay, I need to get some help. Now, whether it's clinical, whether they come to a religious space, whether they hire me as a coach, I just want them to know by the time they're finished reading that book, that they feel like, okay, it's okay. It's okay for me to forgive my daddy for not being there. It's okay for me to forgive my baby mom or ex-wife who then ran me through court. It's okay for me to heal from past trauma and move forward. That doesn't mean that stuff didn't happen to me.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that I'm not a victim, so to speak. What that means is it's okay for me to lay this baggage down and to embark on a personal growth and healing journey to make myself a better father, a better Black man, a better worker, a better entrepreneur, a better uncle, a better dad. Like it's okay. I think just from what I saw last year and just personal experiences in my life, I think our men have not been told it's not it's not feminine, it's not girly. It's okay for you to heal. There's not a
Yeah.
gender to healing. Like there's not a gender to crying. There's
Yeah.
not a gender to forgiveness. And
Yeah.
I just want to do my part and just finish that book out and just let Black men know that that's okay. When I started working on that, I thought about again my book being for everyone here, but I thought about okay, well I can't leave my sisters out. So and when I say sisters, I don't just mean Black women. I mean
Yeah.
women period. Just like my book. My book is going to be even the title is tailored to Black men, but of course someone not Black can pick it up and still get value. But I just feel like I need to speak to my brothers.
Yeah.
So Breathe Black Man Breathe is the title. And again, it's just me letting them know, hey, it's okay. It's okay. Breathe. Lay it down,
Yeah.
brother. It's okay.
Yeah.
So when I started writing that book, probably about chapter 3, I said I can't leave my sisters out. So there's a book also coming at but I want to finish the first one first. That's also coming that is has that same angle, so to speak, but it's more so geared towards women in relationships because women in general, but I can only speak as a Black woman because that's who I am, but I know women in general do this. We get into relationships and we just forget everything. We forget our best friends, our family. We forget that we like to do certain. We just forget everything because we so happy to be in a relationship, and then we wake up and years have passed, and now we then got to get back to ourselves. Got to get our groove back. We got to cut our. We got to do all these things because we lost ourselves in that relationship.
Yeah.
And from my space, talking about mental health and healing, that's the tonality of that book. Like, sis, it's okay to be all booed up, but protect your mental health. Because once you protect this here and understand that you don't have to change and give up all these fantastical things that you used to do before you got booed up, everything else will fall into place. There won't be a need if that relationship ends for you to get your groove back because you would
Yeah.
have never lost it.
Most
So, yeah,
definitely.
those are the two things I'm working on.
Wow. I'm sure going to be keeping in touch with you because I do want
Yes,
to get a copy
absolutely.
of this book. It's
Absolutely.
I think it's very timely,
Yes.
and
Yes.
I have a good feeling it's going to help a lot of men.
I received that. I received that from your mouth to God's ears. I received that.
Men to that.
I received that.
And so this is the project that you're working on right now. And
Yes.
from the way I hear you talk about it, it's like the ideas are just flowing like a river or something. Do you ever
Yeah.
struggle with writing ideas?
You know what's funny? Writing, no. I struggle with I'm trying to, what is that term called? So I'm a classic type A personality. I get excited about everything. I think everything is a good idea. However, I currently, this is real time, I currently struggle with sitting down and finishing one thing before I move on to something else. So my desk will be covered with 20 different projects, all have to do with mental health. With my brain, the synapses just be flying off like boom, boom, boom. And then let something happen on the news, and I'm like, oh, boom, boom, So I am actively practicing, and
Uh,
actually being quarantined last year helped me with that. So I'm still actively practicing to to finish out a project. I can concurrently do things, but it doesn't matter if I got 20 unfinished projects in a year then passed.
uh,
Write these things down in the order of importance, or just make a list first and then go back and order them in importance and start knocking them out. And then I keep now a separate journal for new ideas so that I'm not distracted from my first list. So this is what I'm actively doing to make sure another year doesn't pass and I got 20 projects not completed, because I know that I have a gift of when I open my mouth and speak, people listen. I've had that gift for as long as I know I could talk, right? And there's people who I've talked about projects that are waiting for me to finish. And I'm at the space in my life now where I feel that it's selfish of me not to finish when I know there's people I can help.
uh,
So that's why I'm actively making sure that I do better about, that's a
uh,
good idea. So write that idea in your journal over here, and then close that book
yeah.
and bring your attention back to here. So that's something I'm actually, but I can honestly say when I get in my zone and actually begin to write, I can honestly say the only thing that uh, stops me or makes me hesitate is because, again, me being a classic type A personality, I am super, super critical, and I have major ginormous OCD.
uh,
So I will research, and don't let me think I just spelled something wrong. I could spend 30 minutes between a paperback dictionary,
uh,
online dictionary, talking to Google when I know I spelled it right.
uh,
But because my curiosity is there, because I'm super critical,
uh,
that's something that stops me in completing as quickly as I would like to sometimes. So it don't never be an issue with writing. It'll be all these other little, things
definitely.
I'm working on. So
Awesome. Thank you so much. And this was very inspiring, Coach V. Thank you so much. And where can people buy your book?
So, as I mentioned, I am on Amazon. I have the Kindle ebook on there as well as paperbacks. However, when people order from there, they come directly from that publishing. I offer book bundles on my website. My website is my name, www.coachvmp.com. So that's VEE, VMP. coachvandp.com. And the book bundle is this. So as I mentioned, every chapter at the end has a exercise at the end, right?
Ah,
So before you even get to that, I have a page for supplies.
ah,
And this list is the recommended supplies that I feel a reader needs to successfully work through the book. Because I know the exercises that are in here, I know the challenges, so on and so forth. So, what I offer from my website is not only a copy of my book, but the supplies. So it's a whole bundle, so that when you get the book, and plus I sign it because it's coming directly from me.
awesome.
So when you get the bundle, you're able to sit down and begin reading. You ain't got to look for a journal. You don't have to look for an ink pen. You don't have to look for a highlighter. Like,
Ah,
I'm giving you everything that I suggest that you need right then and there. So you just got to open the package and begin
begin.
reading. The only two things that are on my list of supplies that I don't offer, the reader has to bring, is a clear mind and a positive attitude. Everything else I provide. And the reason why I ask people to have that before they even start reading the book is because the steps and the conversations I'm having in this book is going to challenge some people. It's
Ah,
going to challenge their beliefs, it's going to challenge their upbringing. But I'm a firm believer that in order for things to be rebuilt, we got to take some stuff down.
ah,
So I'm the queen of tough love. So that's why I ask people, have a positive attitude when you read this book and have a clear mind, because I may be sharing with you some stuff that I did that you've never even heard of, or
ah,
that your mama said don't do. There's some people today who are against meditation because they think
ah,
it's some whatever, whatever.
ah,
I'm just telling you what I did
ah.
that works for me. So have a clear mind and positive attitude when you read the book. So, but yeah, on my website, www.coachvandp.com, you can get the entire bundle from me, or you can go on Amazon and just get the book itself or the digital copy of the book.
Very nice. We'll put the link where for Amazon and also from your for your website for the bundle with
Mhm.
the interviews so that people can access them. And is there another way for people to contact you besides your website?
So yes, I do have a office number that I take voicemails and texts, of course. And I think it's also connected to WhatsApp. So I'm on there as well. It's Coach VMP. So whether it's international or local, but my number is 513-506-5588. And again, that takes voicemails as well as text messages. So, and it is my work line. So people can't be trying to text at like 2 a.m. talking about some Coach V and answer me. That's not business hours. So just because a line is on doesn't mean but people also see on my website that I do offer one-on-one coaching
Ah,
packages, and it's all with holistic materials.
very nice.
So when I do that coaching, I send out to my client whatever package they get, the stones that we'll be working with, like amethyst or black tourmaline or rose quartz, stuff like that. Because again, I'm a holistic practitioner. So all that is available on my website. People can send me messages if they have questions, or like I said, just share my number. So I'm pretty accessible.
Awesome. This we will put the number as well with the interviews so that people can contact you. And
Oh, oh, and also, I'm sorry, Kenneth. Also, too, I was because I just saw my reflection in my hoodie. I just started to a apparel line. What's a lifestyle brand? But I offer these hoodies with my signature logo on there, as well as some other inspirational quotes and sayings. So I'm all about people learning how to recondition their thought pattern, and sometimes that is by repeating a positive phrase or a positive saying over and over again. So, and that link is on my website as well.
amazing. And is there anything else you would like to share that we have not been able to address in the interview? This was wonderful, Coach
I,
V.
I
I
think
loved
I
it.
think um I think we gave the people a lot today. I can't wait till outside open ups because I'm ready to travel and speak to people again. And you know, I'm cool with the online thing, but I'm old school. I like to be in
Ah,
the same room with people and give hugs and talk and exchange energy and let people see that I'm a real person. You know,
ah,
just because I overcame these things and writing books and all this stuff. No, I'm real, just like me. Like, don't get it twisted. Like I'm one of the real ones. Like,
ah.
period. I'm one of the real
I
ones. So
feel you. I feel your
yeah.
energy.
Okay. Well, thank you.
You're welcome. And
Thank
this was wonderful, and I'll sure be keeping in touch with you.
you. Please, yes, and thank you so much for having me. Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Bye bye.